The 70s had no guardrails, no content warnings, no algorithm deciding what was too much. These 10 films walked through that open door and kept going. Let's talk about all of them. The first Nudie musical, 1976, start here because this one is exactly what it sounds like and somehow smarter than it has any right to be. A struggling film studio is about to go bankrupt. The only way out is to make the world's first adult musical. So they do. Full songs, full choreography, full everything else. Bruce Kimmel wrote, directed, and starred in it, and the joke the film keeps making is that putting musical numbers inside an adult film is genuinely difficult. The behind-the-scenes chaos of making something this ridiculous is funnier than most straight comedies from the same year. There's a number called Orgasm that is performed with the same commitment and production value as anything you'd see in a legitimate Broadway production. It's crude, cheap, and completely aware of both those things. That self-awareness is what separates it from pure exploitation. The film is laughing at itself the entire time and inviting you to laugh with it rather than at it. Obscure enough that most people have never heard of it. Weird enough that once you see it, you never forget it. Ilsa, She Wolf of the SS, 1975. This one is not played for laughs. Don Edmonds directed this Canadian exploitation film set in a Nazi prison camp, and it became one of the most banned films of the entire decade. The UK, Australia, Norway, New Zealand, multiple US states, it landed on the video nasty list in Britain and stayed there. Diane Thorne plays Ilsa with a cold, theatrical ferocity that became genuinely iconic in exploitation circles. The film is brutal, deliberately provocative, and uncomfortable in ways that don't wash off easily. What makes it historically significant, rather than just offensive, is what it represents about where 1970s exploitation cinema was willing to go. There were no breaks, no studio notes, no test screenings with concerned focus groups. Edmonds had a camera, a budget of roughly nothing, and zero restrictions. The negative was accidentally destroyed on the set of a television production shortly after filming. The only prints that survived were the ones already in distribution. Some films feel like they were never supposed to exist, and this is one of them. Alice, Sweet Alice, 1976. This one goes in a completely different direction from everything around it on this list. A young girl is murdered in a church during her first communion. Her strange, masked older sister becomes the primary suspect. Alfred Soule directed this New Jersey slasher film with a genuine eye for Catholic guilt and institutional failure that most horror films don't bother with. Brooke Shields appears in an early role. That fact got used heavily in the marketing after she became famous, which is how the film found its audience years after it was made. What actually makes it worth watching is Soule's direction. He understands that horror works better when it comes from places that are supposed to be safe. A church, a family, a child. The mask the killer wears is a cheap plastic thing that somehow becomes genuinely unsettling because of the context around it. Raunchy is the wrong word for this one. Deeply uncomfortable is more accurate. Yet it fits this list because 1976 was the only decade where a film this strange could get made and distributed without anyone stopping to ask if it should. The Kentucky Fried Movie, so 1977. John Landis directed this before Animal House. Jim Abrahams and David Zucker wrote it before Airplane. That's two of the greatest comedies ever made, and this is the film both teams made immediately before them. Same format as The Groove Tube. Fake commercials, fake news segments, fake trailers. But sharper, faster, and with a budget slightly above $0. The centerpiece is a full parody martial arts film called A Fistful of Yen that runs about 20 minutes and commits completely to the bit. It's genuinely funny as both a parody and as an action sequence in its own right. The film made roughly $15 million on a $400,000 budget. Those numbers got Landis the Animal House job. The Kentucky Fried Movie is essentially the proof of concept that launched one of the most successful comedy careers of the decade, and almost nobody connects those dots. Up in Smoke, 1978, Cheech and Chong's first film. A road movie about two complete idiots who accidentally smuggle a van made entirely of compressed marijuana across the Mexican border. Lou Adler directed it with exactly the right amount of effort, which is not very much, because the film understands that Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong are the entire reason you're watching, and everything else is just a frame for them to exist inside. It made $44 million on a budget of $2 million in 1978. What gets forgotten is how well constructed the comedy actually is. Cheech and Chong had spent years doing live shows, and every bit in this film is timed with the precision of people who know exactly how long a joke needs to breathe. The stoner comedy genre looks effortless because they made it look effortless. It isn't. Every lazy weed comedy made since owes this film more than it will ever admit. Okay, real quick. Frame Time is genuinely trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, and we are going absolutely crazy watching that number. If you're still here and you haven't subscribed yet, please just hit the button. It costs nothing, and it means everything to this channel right now. Meatballs, 1979. Bill Murray's first starring role. Ivan Reitman directing before Stripes, before Ghostbusters, before anyone knew what either of them was going to become. A summer camp comedy about a head counselor who is too smart and too bored for the job he's doing and takes it out on everyone around him in the most entertaining way possible. Murray improvised large portions of his performance, and Reitman kept the camera rolling because what was happening was better than what was written. It made $43 million on a $1.6 million budget and essentially invented the summer comedy template that the entire decade that followed would copy badly. The scene where Murray rallies his camp before the big competition against the rich kids across the lake is funny and genuinely moving simultaneously, which is a combination almost nobody can pull off. It never gets mentioned alongside Murray's serious work. It should. This is where he figured out exactly what he was. The Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, 1970. Roger Ebert wrote the screenplay. Russ Meyer directed it. 20th Century Fox released it. Read that sentence again. A rock band arrives in Hollywood, inherits a mansion, gets tangled up with a music producer, a drug scene, and a series of murders that escalate until the finale goes completely off the rails in directions that defy summarization. Ebert always defended this film and never apologized for it. He understood that Meyer was making something genuinely operatic underneath the exploitation surface. The film is excessive by design. Every emotion is pushed past the point of realism into something closer to pop art. The violence is theatrical. The dialogue is written to be too much on purpose. Fox had no idea what they had released until it was already out. It made money, and they stayed confused about it for years. One of the strangest films a major studio has ever put its name on. National Lampoon's Animal House, 1978, $3 million budget. $141 million worldwide. The most profitable comedy ever made at that point in Hollywood history. John Landis, Doug Kenny, Harold Ramis, John Belushi playing John Blutarsky like a force of nature that the script could barely contain. Universal passed on it twice. They finally greenlit it with a budget so small they assumed it would fail quietly. Landis shot it in Oregon in 32 days. Belushi was so committed that he gained weight specifically for the role. The food fight scene was improvised. The finale parade was shot with real townspeople who showed up because they heard something was being filmed. The MPAA gave it an R rating after extended negotiations. Several scenes they flagged are tame by any modern standard. The film opened in 1978 and never left the cultural conversation. What Animal House understood that nobody had figured out before is that the audience wanted to be in on the joke rather than watching it from outside. Every character in that film is failing at something and enjoying it completely. That feeling of cheerful, unapologetic failure resonated with an entire generation that was tired of being told what success was supposed to look like. 46 years later, nothing has replaced it. A lot of films have tried. 10 films. 1 decade, 0 guardrails. Hit like, subscribe to Frame Time, and we'll keep going back to the decades when cinema had no idea what the rules were supposed to be.